Mayor Gerardo Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Africa Luna Carrasco,
Present.
Councilmember Mario Buchanan Jr.,
Present.
Councilmember Luis Cabrera,
Present.
Councilmember Jose Ponce,
Present.
Councilmember Matias Rosales, Councilmember Gloria Torres.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's see here. We're going to go ahead and go with item number 2A. Let me, could you move my, perfect, thank you. We're going to go with presentation 2A, item 2A, presentation of the 2021-2022 mid-year report by Ms. Julie Engel, President and CEO of Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation. Julie, thank you.
May I?
Yes, please.
Mayor, members of council, thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's so nice to see all of you again. I do have a presentation, and I think Sonia is going to bring it up here. There we go. So, you are the first entity that gets to witness our new branding. So we've gone to a new marketing brand and using our same colors and incorporating the Y, but we've had a intern with us and he's been incredibly creative. I love the creative minds of our 20-year-olds. Next, oh, do I get to change it? Perfect, okay. So what we are doing is reminding everyone that we are still part of this state. We're using some of the state's accolades now in our opening salvo because a lot of times we do feel like we're kind of alone out here, but we need to be taking credit for some of the things that are happening there because we are still part of this state. But these are the reasons that we are being looked at very hard right now, and it is this 1.8 million people that is within this region. Unlike the metro areas in Arizona, we have an international boundary, and so we have to remind everybody that there is 1.8 million people in a 60-mile radius right here. And we're a very young population, which is very attractive to most companies because there are areas across the U.S., especially in the Midwest, that are losing population, and so their average age is aging significantly. So this is attractive when it comes to finding available workforce and a continuum of that workforce. So I think the rest of these stats, most of you are pretty familiar with. Our turnover rate remains very low. Even during COVID, because we were lucky that a lot of our manufacturing operations were deemed essential, so they didn't have layoffs during COVID, and so their turnover rate remained less than 3%. And moving on from this one, here's our key industry sectors, logistics and distribution, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. The reason that we're seeing a lot more interest and traffic coming through our commercial port of entry has a lot to do with Ensenada, the port, Hutchinson Whampoa making investments in Ensenada and goods actually coming through there now and staying in Mexico until they cross here. And the reason for that is California has a lot of labor laws, a lot of transportation laws, and as soon as they enter Long Beach and LA, those ports of entry, those laws take effect. If they cross on a land port in Mexicali, those laws take effect. And so that has driven a lot of traffic to this port of entry, and that's why we're seeing an increase. We've also seen a significant increase in our foreign trade zone activity for the same reason. So unfortunately, Ensenada can't do everything. San Diego has also invested and improved some of theirs, which again works in our favor because if they offload in San Diego, they can go back into Tijuana and stay in Mexico and bring it in through our port of entry again. So the maquila obviously is growing significantly as well, and we're seeing, we really, Jenny and I were talking before, Lazy Boy should have been ours. It's so sad that it's across the border, and they're growing exponentially. So what everyone has found is there's labor there, and it's a good place to find the workforce you're looking for. Food processing, Dole came back into our community, and Dole is looking at going year-round here again because of issues that they were having in California. Aviation and defense testing. We continue to grow in that space as well and have more to come due to the Marine Corps Air Station having that operational test and evaluation squadron. So they're responsible for the Osprey, the F-35, the unmanned squadron, and the Apache A variant. So anytime there's a modification to any of those platforms, it has to be done here. So all of the manufacturers of those platforms have to have a presence here as well. So that is going to continue to grow and continue to be in our favor. And then industrial manufacturing, this is where we're going to see San Luis really take off, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. So these are the projects that are in the pipeline this very minute. A lot of them have a name, code name, because they're still very, very confidential. The one I want to bring your attention to is Project Spec 2, which is San Luis, and then Labrie. Labrie's building is going to be ready for us to start marketing, and we have already had several clients that want that building immediately. We have to wait until it gets through all of their change of ownership, et cetera, et cetera. So you have an asset in the ground ready to go that already has a significant amount of interest. We have a company partner who is willing to invest a great deal in speculative development here in San Luis at the commercial port. That is going to be a game changer when it comes to manufacturing, distribution, and jobs for this area. Project Spec in Yuma is the same thing. So we're talking about significant construction, over 1.5 million square feet with these projects in spec. Now what that means is there's no user yet. This is just a building that they're building on the hope that there'll be users. So we're very confident. The reason they're going to do that is they understand we do have a pipeline of projects that want these buildings. And so they're very comfortable building these now, which for the last 5 years we've been trying to get someone to come in here and they wouldn't, because they just didn't think there'd be the demand that we do have. And then Project Plush is, we're still under an NDA, so I can't say what that is, but it's pretty exciting, and there's going to be a lot of job creation from that, and this is a third-tier manufacturer for some of our largest airlines and some of our largest automobile industry. And so we're pretty excited. And then Project Rings is actually Goyce Rings. I can talk about that project because they have bought their building and they're operational now. And what they manufacture are these giant rings for the fishing nets that commercial industry uses. And so they're doing a lot of steel fabricating and manufacturing in Somerton. And Project Sparky is also a spec building, and so we have interest like we've never had before. 1,180 new jobs, and these are from the for sure. These we know are going to happen. 85 million CapEx, 965,000 square feet of industrial, and 44 million in new payroll is what we're anticipating for this year. So this is something I'm really excited to talk about with you all. And I need to thank our Forefront ED and Aprode. We have an online job portal now that is binational, and that is what the Bolsa de Trabajo Financia, I'm sorry, I mutilated that. But what this is where people on the Mexico side, whether it's Mexicali or San Luis Sonora, who have degrees in engineering, have degrees in business, are putting their resumes on this job portal. We have employers on both sides of the border who are using this to post positions that are open. We have been successful already with several companies here on this side of the border who have hired engineers from over here. Some of them don't need visas and sponsorships, some of them do. But I believe with all my heart that if the city of San Luis, Somerton, Yuma, can actually sponsor visas, this would solve their competition issue with getting those high-skilled people to come into our market for less money than they can make going into the Phoenix market and going into LA and the bigger metro areas. We constantly train and then lose. So these people have commitments to be in this area because they already live very close by. They have the skill already, so we need to take advantage. So if the city of San Luis can hire from Mexico, this is a solution that we've been looking for a long time because the competition is so hard and its jobs are going unfilled, and we're solving this issue. We have several of our manufacturers who are using their senior engineers are from Mexico. 2 of our manufacturers actually sponsored the visas to get them here. So this is working, and it's a tool that I really think our public sector needs to jump on too, because we know how hard it is to recruit for a lot of these positions. So looking forward to this being as successful as it has started. And again, we're working in tandem with San Luis and Chicanos por la Casa for Revolving Loan Fund. We are submitting an application for a $2 million revolving loan fund, and Chicanos por la Casa would be a micro lender that would be the next step. So the revolving loan fund is for people who can't get loans. It is for the unbankable. Once they've got that and they get their business started and they've demonstrated a year or 2 of success, Chicanos por la Casa can take them to the next level. So they are a partner with us on the revolving loan fund as well. Then grants. We have had, the pandemic had us at our desks for a long time, and so we got to research a lot of grant opportunities. And with the new administration, there's an enormous amount of money available to apply for. One of the things that came to our attention was during the prior administration, there were grant opportunities, and Arizona was one of the lowest ranked states for getting any of those funds. So we tried to address that as a state, and the Local First has actually hired grant writers that they're allowing our rural populations to use for free to keep applying for these things. We have an in-house grant writer who has been incredibly successful. We had the multifamily housing study that was done. The spaceport feasibility through the EDA was awarded to us. The Yuma Multiversity Phase 2 was awarded to us, GYEDC. And then the ESP grant, GYEDC, and GYPA worked in tandem and got those funds. And then the binational workforce study, which you are all helping us fund that study as well. And then the Build Back Better Challenge, that's where the $2 million is in that application. We're also doing, in partnership with Yuma County, they are building the backbone for broadband, but there are still areas that will not be reached by that backbone, and there isn't enough mass for our providers to want to put the service there. But agriculture needs it. Some of our smaller remote communities need it. And so we have applied for funds, $8 million, in the Build Back Better to put in towers in these remote areas that will connect to that backbone. So the backbone is still critical because that's going to get the service to the towers. And then we will be able to have cell service throughout Yuma County, no matter where you live, because the county has agreed to own those towers and lease the towers to a provider who will deliver the service. So as long as the provider doesn't have to make that infrastructure investment, they're willing to give us the service. Not give us, they'll sell it, but we'll have service that we've never had before. So in total, up to date, now if we get the Build Back Better Challenge, that is actually $45 million in total. But right now, what we have been awarded is $703,000 that has definitely benefited the whole community. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I had notes on my phone, that's why I have it up here. So again, Chicanos por la Casa, we are in conversations with them about some opportunities, not only here, but throughout Yuma County, but one of the areas that has really piqued their interest is the border. And so they are looking there. And then we're also working with the governor's office to be one of the 6 centers for the governor has, in his budget, has money allocated for 6 innovation centers. 4 of those have already been dedicated to Phoenix and Tucson. So there's 3 communities left to compete for the 2 remaining, and that is us, Prescott, and Flagstaff. We have been lobbying the governor and their staff, and when the governor was here and gave his State of the State, he announced that we will get one of those $5 million startups, accelerators. So more good news coming this way, and they truly are shaping our future, because we will be able to innovate and implement with all of the new buildings that we have coming online. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Julie, I just want to say that thank you. It's pretty exciting. These are exciting times for the county and for the city of San Luis, and I really appreciate your hard work. It's very noticeable. The meetings that are going on, the projects, the buildings that are being built, the businesses that are showing up. It says a lot about Yuma County and also San Luis. So thank you, and thank you for the report.
I need to thank you, because we couldn't do it without your staff, Jenny and her team. They are integral to everything we do, so thank you. And thank you for the time that you all commit to us as well.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from council?
No, sir.
No.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you all
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, Julie.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and go with item number 2B, discussion of possible direction staff to any and all matters regarding the Mario Avenue Improvements Project. Jenny Torres.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. In the past 8 years, you have supported my department in really focusing all our CDBG funding in street improvements in areas, in our older areas. We have really focused in looking at some of the main corridors in Plaza 1, Plaza 2, Los Portales. And so what we have done is be able to take a look at a project, input some CDBG funding, commit some local match, and really pretty much fixing all the street areas in Plaza 1, Plaza 2, Los Portales, and Escondido. We still have a few areas that we need, but we're still working on them. What we want to do for this fiscal year is we really want to focus on Mesa Street and complete it. Due to the cost of the construction and everything that's happening, we'll figure out if we're going to be able to make it with that funding or if we need to do a second phase. Rancho Los Oros Phase 2 will be resubmitted to the state. They have a lot of funding right now, so their NOFAs, or Notice of Funding Availability, has been changing. It was May, now it's January. We don't know if that's going to change. But what we want to do specifically for Merrill Avenue, in the past we have committed almost $1 million. We did 2 phases from Cesar Chavez Boulevard to Los Oros Street. We committed that much funding. We were able to make those improvements. And what we want to do now is extend that street. Sonia, would you mind getting the other map and just leaving it up there? The conceptual. Oh, that one. No, I'm sorry, the farm irrigation, that one. That one, I'll show. And what we want to do is, really focus on from Los Oros all the way to County 22nd. Now, there's a few options that we have. One is we can still apply some CDBG funding and leave it the way it is, make some minor improvements, and just keep it the way it is, just make some minor improvements in the road. Or what the staff is recommending today is to really widen that street, be able to make some significant improvements, thinking ahead and planning, because we know that as our modernization of the port is constructed, we're going to have a lot more traffic going southbound. What we do see is that a lot of the people, in order to try to get to some of their homes, they take that road. And so we're seeing a lot more traffic and traffic congestion, and we really want to say, do we want to invest into a project, to address, not just the current traffic congestions, but to try to alleviate the current and the future traffic congestions. And so what we did is we started the design on the project, and we started getting into that point of, do we want to widen it? And I think that's the direction the staff is going. We're thinking that it's a $2 million project, but we could do 2 phases. You know, do 1 phase, use CDBG funding, do the match, do the second phase, apply for SSP, you know, apply some funding, really get the project done. Now, I think that's the first question, you know, for you is, do you want to keep it as is, or do you want to widen it? The second question is, if we do the widening, we need to acquire a right-of-way. You know, all of you guys have seen that even if we have the funding, if we don't have the right-of-way, kind of project can move forward. So what we did, we took a look at the property owner to the west, which is farming. They're farming right now, and in order to get the right-of-way, we would interfere with their canal that is feeding water to their property. So what we would need to do is relocate that canal, which becomes a little bit expensive. So what we talked to them initially, just as a representative, just to get the discussion going, is if we widen the street, if we make the improvement, would you give us the right-of-way? Obviously, they're interested to some extent. Now, let me tell you that that property, whenever they develop it, 10, 20, 30 years from now, they will have to grant us the right-of-way, and they'll have to make the improvements. But do we want to wait 10, 20, 30 years for that to happen? For us, the staff, we felt it's a good trade-off to be able to get the right-of-way, and for us to do the improvements. We're going to do it with grant money, and we're going to do it with some city money. But we felt that the need is here now, and that we want to plan for this. Now, this wouldn't be in the next fiscal year, but the fiscal year after. What we want to do is be able to start those negotiations and get everything in writing, because if ADOA changes their NOFA and there's an opportunity, we want to be able to jump in and be able to submit an application earlier than that. So that's what we're recommending is, 1, you know, do you want to keep it the way it is, widen it? And 2, if you want to widen it, you know, do you agree with the staff and going in and negotiating with the property owner to do a trade-off? So those are the discussions. Louis obviously has been part of those discussions, and Eulogio can really tell you the details on it if you want to discuss it further.
Well, Jenny, what I can say is staff is looking towards the future. The fact is that traffic with the new port of entry, we're talking right now, we're looking at 7 million people using that port of entry. With 16 lanes, they're looking at 14, 16 million people. So that's per year. So plus San Luis is still growing. So within the 5 years, they think it might actually grow another 38%. So with those kind of numbers, we need to start looking at not just working, but expanding. Yep. This is the key. We need to find key, for example, and staff found this, that people are using those streets because they don't want to be congested right in Cesar Chavez, or they don't want to be part of Maine. So I think that we should do this. I think we should expand and start talking about that, because this is something that we need to see things in the future, not next year, but 3, 4, 5 years from now. And thank you, staff. And that would be my recommendation, because we really have to think about it. Of course, there's other projects that need to be also, but we can't use CDBG funds for those.
Yep.
But we can for this.
Yep.
So we trust you guys on your judgment or the possibilities of actually getting the funding. So no, I say go for it. We have to. And thank you, staff, for the hard work you guys do. Mr. Eulogio Vera, I need your input. Estás muy calladito allá.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. So yeah, like Jenny explained, this is something that we think complete that corridor for Merrill Avenue. As you are all aware, we've been working on that part of town in the last few years. We did actually phase 1 and phase 2 of Merrill, which one of those 2 phases we actually broke it in 2 phases to get rid of the flooding issue that we had right next to Rio Sonora. So we actually, I mean, this map doesn't show it well, but if we were to look on Google Earth, you will see that we have a wider street just south of Los Oros. And then north of Los Oros, it gets reduced to about half the width to just 2 lanes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good project. I think it'll help circulation. I mean, when we first started looking at it, due to the funding amounts, we were like, we can definitely do it in one phase and just replace what's there. But we didn't felt that was the right thing to do. We felt, we can do the full width. But then we started looking at existing canals, and it got complicated really, really fast. But we think we can do it in 2 phases. So I definitely think widening will be the best thing for our residents.
No, good. Any comments from council?
I agree. I mean, especially with all the development happening on the commercial side of 95, thinking 5, 10 years down the road, the perfect time to get ahead of this, so.
No, and I think we have good odds also. This is a necessity.
And I just want to mention one more thing, that as part of the design for this roadway, we would also be including a storm drain to collect stormwater for the area that would take it north to a future retention basin west of where the hotel was being proposed. So,
Okay.
so we're like sort of planning down the road so that we don't have any future flooding or retention bases that don't drain anywhere like we used to have. So, and it is part of something that we discussed with Yuma County Flood Control about 8 years ago. So it includes that work as well.
Let me ask a question now that, like you said, one more question. So do we have the right of way then for the other piece of road, or are we talking about not, ¿cómo se llama la calle esa? Or the Carl Jr. and all that is?
Carl Jr.
The one that's right there, the one that's actually an intersection right there. So is that not planned as a road? I thought that originally that was the road right there.
Okay, so the intersection on Piceno,
He said, no, there you go.
so Piceno, that intersection, we have right of way up to where it's shown there, part of the intersection that was built when Main Street was built. When the developer goes in and develops this land, they would have to design the parcel. They can do a roadway through there, they can do, similar what the Walmart Plaza did. But, so we don't have any of those right-of-ways inside.
Okay.
But the right-of-way on Merrill, it's already an established collector road. So they would have, eventually when they develop, they would have to provide that right-of-way to us.
Okay.
Piceno doesn't necessarily have to go through straight. It can, could jog down and then make a weird connection over to Merrill. But they would have to connect to it, but not necessarily straight.
Okay. I always thought that was an unfinished road that we just never got to because of the need. Okay.
Perfect.
Now, we would need about close to 2.7 acres on Merrill from that property owner. And again, our trade-off was give us that right away, and we'll do the improvements, we'll relocate the canal. That's a benefit to them, but I think for us is a benefit that we can do something about it right now versus waiting for them to do it in the future.
And
Because
on
we
that,
don't know what their plans are.
and on that Merrill right away, we're doing that with we're going with the wider part of it, right? For the bike lane, the sidewalk.
Yes,
We're asking
yes.
what we need for future expansion to make sure.
Right, we would be doing the full roadway cross-section,
Okay.
sidewalk on both sides, curb and gutter, and then, and we'll definitely look at making sure that we have the bike lanes in there for the width.
Any more comments? If not, please proceed. Okay?
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and go with item number 2C, discussion and possible direction of staff in all matters regarding the recommendation to the City Council to reappoint or appoint directors to the board of the San Luis Facilities Development Corporation for the terms that expired on July 29, 2021, and to fill a vacancy. Kay?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see everybody, except for Mr. Buchanan on Zoom. All the positions for the San Luis Facility Development Corporation have expired, and This is the corporation that takes care of the detention center. We've not had any, I better knock on wood. We haven't had any contract negotiations or need to disturb things, so it's been stable. We'll be going to renew the contract with LaSalle in 2024. So with the experience that this board has had, staff is recommending to keep everyone. We do have a vacancy due to the unfortunate death of John Starkey, and we would like to have an employee in that position just because there is a lot of paperwork with all the federal government contracts, and we sometimes can't always get Jenny, so we'd like to have an employee so they'd be able to do signatures quickly. So the current members are Jenny Torres, Maria Gonzalez, Alex Joe Harper, and Marco Pinzon. And we're recommending Elogio Vera. He has said that he would be interested in serving on that board as the employee for the vacancy.
Has he been there before? Mr. Elogio Vera been part of the committee?
No, this would be a first time for him.
Okay, and you say you're recommending he be appointed to the vacancy of vice president?
Oh, well, they could, it's the board that decides who's vice president.
Okay,
It's
because
just
the way you put it here is you're basically right next to it. You're putting his vacancy as vice president. but-
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't, after the death of John Starkey, they didn't elect a new vice president
Okay.
yet.
You would fill in the vacancy, and then the board, is at their will, if they want, they could change that.
Yes,
they want, right. Okay.
And let's hear, Maria Gonzalez is willing to be part.
Yes,
Alex Joe Harper is willing to be part.
yes,
Mr. Marco Pinzon is willing to be part.
yes, they all agreed.
Jenny Torres, I know you're busy, but you're willing. Okay. Mr. Elogio Vera, would you have any problems with this appointment? Okay, I just want to make sure. They'll be working. Okay, sounds good.
Look at it, logo.
I don't want to say, I just want to make sure because it's going to get busy, guys. It really is going to get busy. So, okay, I have no problem. Staff feels I have a problem. Does anyone in council? No? Sounds good. Thank you, Kay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Item number 2D, update followed by discussion and possible direction of staff in all matters regarding Avenue F expansion, including the streetlights at the San Luis Lane. Councilmember Luis Cabrera and Elogio Vera, Director of Public Works. Let us know.
Mayor, I had an opportunity to put my 3 items in the agenda for this work session. Since we did the groundbreaking a few weeks back, I thought it was a good idea to get an update on where we're at with design and see if we have applied for the right-of-way of Avenue F for the expansion, and also to see if what the plans are for a possible street light where the school is going to be built for all the traffic that is going to come in with the new school. So, Mr. Vera, I don't know.
Severo.
Good evening, council, mayor, vice mayor, members of council. So on this project, I don't think it made it through on the ARPA funding. It was one project that was going to be putting into the revolving budgets for the upcoming years. However, we have included this project for design in fiscal year 23. So the first thing on the design, once we establish the roadway width, how many lanes, turn lanes, and everything else, from there, we'll generate the right-of-way exhibits. And with the right-of-way exhibits, at that time, that's when we apply to state land to get the right-of-way for the construction of the roadway. Hopefully, it goes a lot faster than what experience we had for Cesar Chavez Boulevard, but that takes at least a year, you know, I mean, maybe even a little bit longer. And then once we get that, we can move into construction. Also, just for the record, part of the widening of this intersection actually goes in hand with the widening of the roadway. It goes in hand with the widening of the intersection. Just from the circulation standpoint, having 5 lanes doesn't really do you much good if you don't have an intersection to accept that traffic.
Exactly.
So in our budget, we have both projects. We have the widening of Avenue F, and we have the expansion of the intersection. The other thing that's gonna be key to execute this project is this part is actually, there's parts of both the widening and the intersection that's under the Yuma County jurisdiction. So either we go through them to build it, or we're gonna have to annex to get those projects completed. So within the next couple years, we have to make sure we complete those tasks as well. We haven't, we can probably try and do research at the state level for the right-of-way, what's existing. And we might be able to do the streetlights. We just haven't done the right-of-way research for where the existing poles are located. But that's something that we can probably start now.
So we don't have it in the budget for the design,
No.
for this fiscal year?
No, because when this project was brought up and it started mentioning, we already had this budget for the fiscal year 2022. I mean, if council
Because I
elects-
know I brought this up during the budget retreat last year, and I was under the impression that the designing of the expansion was gonna be included to have shovel ready for whenever we could get some grant funds, or if the city had the funding to go and do the work, as long as the design was ready and right-of-way or annexation had been done. We could check with Monica to see if it was in the final budget or not, but I was under the impression it was, at least the design. So,
Probably wasn't, probably got cut. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like my building, how many years we've been trying.
Yeah,
At the end, they
yeah,
cut
no,
them and-
yeah, I mean,
and I can go
Yeah.
back and check.
I know it was cut. I know we had to make some changes, and I know the priority was Cesar Chavez Boulevard because we were going to need all the funding for Cesar Boulevard, and also the expansion on, was it 10th Street and 24th Street?
Right.
That was set as a priority. And
Right.
so all the projects, for example, these are shovel-ready. These are more shovel-ready, and the thing is, F does need those improvements, but we don't have the money. We're not rich. So we have to make priorities, unfortunately. But I think once we get on Sanchez Boulevard, by the way it looks like it's going to get easier, faster to get those right-of-ways once we have Cesar Chavez Boulevard built, or at least get the funding, because it's going to take at least 2 or 3 years. This project, I mean, if we start now or actually look at the possibilities, you also have to look at, 24th Street and a half also. So we're also working on that. I just want to make sure your staff does not get spread too thin to the point where everything's being delayed.
And I think also one of the things that might help speed this up is if we're fortunate enough to get the state money that we're asking for the Cesar Chavez expansion. I had a conversation the other day with Susan at the county, because since Avenue F is part of the county, and since the state's asking for some county contribution, that might at least help us in the
Yeah.
funding part of it. But yeah, we would need the design, but some of the design, at least the intersection will be incorporated with the design we have right now for Cesar Chavez expansion, and it's just a matter, so I mean, it's the moving teams, but that is something I did talk to the county, to Susan. That might be a way to get the county involved and get some funding to please the state, because Avenue F is mostly, I mean, from Cesar Chavez to San Luis Lane, that's a lot of their roadway, my understanding.
Yeah, it is state land on both sides of
Right.
Avenue F. And actually, if you look at Yuma County records, it doesn't even show any right-of-way
Right.
for it. But we were talking internally, many times when the state land, even when they grant the right-of-way, it doesn't get recorded in our records here in Yuma County. So we have to actually go to the state and search their database to find those records. That's what we had to do for Cesar Chavez Boulevard.
Can we start looking at the right-of-way and actually see or estimate the cost or possibility, how long it's going to take? Because if we're barely going to look into it, I mean, if it's county or not county, if it's state, we're looking at 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. What was the design? estimate?
I guess for that, I would say 40,000
I
would
think it was
probably,
40,000, yeah.
yeah.
If I don't,
I mean,
if I'm not
the-
mistaken.
If it did get cut off on last year's budget, and we do have a little bit more freed up because of the HARPA and all of the funding, maybe it's something we gotta make sure we look at in this budget before coming up.
Yeah.
Because we do need to get it done with the Cesar Chavez, so on forth, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's a council, we can always try to move things around even now, and maybe just get the design going if it's not in the current budget.
Yeah,
It's not a huge amount, but I agree with the mayor. I mean, there was a lot of other bigger projects also, and honestly, I don't have it in front of me right now, the actual approved project list.
Yeah.
It's
not there.
now the YMPO just came in with $200,000 that they weren't expected, can they help us with that? Just asking. I don't know, you know how the YMPO funding works, but I don't know, that's something, and again, connecting it with if we get this funding for Cesar Chavez, so we'll see.
And the other thing is, you can only take so much money from contingency, because all I'm seeing is contingency, contingency, contingency. So we have to find other sources of funding if we're gonna do this. For example, that building that's not gonna get built,
It's gonna get built, I'm patient.
I mean, don't we have another extra 100,000 there somewhere?
No.
Putting you on the spot, hey?
We'll get,
Well,
Probably
No,
a little bit more.
I think we can look for funding on some of the things that are not being completed,
Yeah,
and actually, we're doing that, now.
I
just
know you
Because
are.
we're presenting to council next week. But yeah, those are the, unfortunately, that's our current environment, and it's tough.
You have to remove funding from a certain project to do the other one.
Right.
That's why we decided that we were gonna look at this in 2023. And so, certain things get priority.
good example would be like the police station, I thought we had left the fencing because of security, and that got cut too. Come
I
to
mean-
find out later when I asked the chief, hey, what happened to your fencing and security equipment? No, you guys cut it, I'm like, huh. So, stuff like that, fortunately.
But let's look at the land acquisition or the right-of-ways that are required. I think it's very important. Once we do that,
Who
It's very
can support you with that, Eulogio, with the right-of-way and the annexation? Like, can you work with the staff to find someone to support you? Because I agree with the mayor. I mean, we don't want to stretch you guys out thin where you guys are struggling in your department. Who usually does the right-of-ways with the state and the federal, and who does the annexations?
It's, for Highway 90, Cesar Chavez Boulevard, it was Jenny and I who worked on the right-of-way acquisition. Annexation, usually it's, legal department with, planning and zoning for the annexation. And I'm not too familiar on the duration of an annexation, and really, most of the time, it's how successful it could be or not. But I think that's definitely something that we can start, discussions with the county. I'm sure the county will be happy to turn over that intersection back to the city. I mean, I don't think that would be an issue for them.
but we want to make sure we can get funding from the county. Because they have to, because most of their investments is coming, it's occurring down at the foothill area, Yuma, but nothing here. So let's look at that option also.
Okay. And the current condition of that intersection needs attention, so
Yeah.
I've discussed it with our public works director. But yeah, we can look at that avenue, see if they can help us with some funding.
And if we can get some funding from there, the design can be designed. I mean, it would be good.
Mhm.
So the school's already going to get built, so I think it's time. So you can look into it.
Yeah, and that was the other part of the question, right? The signal on.
Yeah,
Sunrise
so
Lane.
something, not necessarily a street light, maybe something like we have walking out the port of entry, you know, how it, like, it flashes when it's in use so the cars can stop, or I don't know, is the city or the district of Somerton planning to do something with the build, or is that something that we have to take care of?
So we haven't, at least on my part, I'm not sure we've received comments from from our consultants, but, we've sort of informed the school district, Somerton School District, that we would probably be asking for a signal at that location. I mean, traffic is already, significant during peak hours in the morning and the afternoon. Adding a school with kids crossing, I mean, from the safety standpoint, you only need one accident, you know, you don't need it to be full of kids crossing. So that's gonna be one comment that will be at least be coming out from my department. It will be that they need to contribute to the signalized intersection. We'll see where that goes, you know, what the traffic study states and everything else, but at least that's something that's gonna be requested.
Mayor, if I
Sounds
may?
like a good idea.
Mayor?
Please.
Elohio, has finance, did you get a chance to talk to him about the possible, to be able to move forward with the design for this fiscal year? Would that be possible?
I wasn't able to get a response from finance for this fiscal year. I did not. So that would be something that I can go back and look at. But I know it was one of the projects that was in the ARPA list. And it was discussed that it was gonna be, looked at through the budget process for upcoming years. But we can definitely look at the design for it.
Please proceed, Mr. Rivera.
Sounds good.
We're going to go ahead and go with item number 2E, update followed by discussion, possible action staff in all matters regarding County 22nd Street and 4th Avenue street improvements.
Yeah, again, just update where we're at with the improvements there, and then I'll have some comments after you speak.
So on County 22nd and 4th Avenue intersection, we've reached out to the owner of the parcel to the west of the intersection. We need a little triangle of land to fit in the longer radiuses, because with the current layout, which is within a right-of-way, buses always are on the dirt, so with these improvements, we're gonna be improving that radius southbound on 4th Avenue. And we contacted them, and they agreed to sign off on the deed. And today, they barely provided me the name that goes on who's gonna be signing it. So we expect to get that taken care of in the next week or so. And after that, we can go out to bid and then probably within a month be in construction.
So that was the only thing that is holding us back?
That is the right of way, and they've always said, that we will issue it, but, we were waiting for some information. And then the other thing is, we had the consultant revise the legal description, and that took some time also. But right now, we have everything. It's just really putting that name on that deed, send it over for them to sign, and we can record it and move forward.
Any questions, concerns? Thank you, Mr. Vera.
Thank you.
Item number 2F, discussion, possible action staff in all matters regarding the revision of the current personnel policies by a professional agency or consultant. Mr. Luis Galaviz.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm wearing my HR hat today, so. if you may.
So Louis, with this, I brought this item up for discussion. I know it has been said before that some of our policies and things that we have in HR are very outdated. So I know we've been struggling with the department and getting a department head. So I thought it would be possibly a good idea with funding of this fiscal year, if there's any in that department, to find a consultant agency that can help you guys update, revamp the policy manual, include policies that are not, I know with technology and many different things, there's a lot of things that we probably don't have, and there's a lot of things that we don't need. So that's why I brought this up for discussion.
So Councilman Cabrera, great question. I think, the first thought was, we're hoping to have an HR director, and that person that was one of the priorities. Again, that's been a challenge. I was able to work with HR staff, and we do have 2 quotes. One would be in between 10 and 15,000 to be able to do that. Budget-wise, we looked at it, and we would be able to put those amounts together. If mayor and council would like us to, we can move forward and work with one of the groups, consultant groups, to be able to do that. We do have a lot of policies that need to be updated, and some need to be created just because of as the city grows, we have different policies and procedures that are falling in place. So I would look to mayor and council for direction.
Wasn't Justin already paid for this?
Excuse me,
Something like, wasn't Justin Pierce already paid to do something like this?
That I am aware of, no.
Check.
I can double check, but he is.
Yes,
Yes, he already been
Yes.
paid, so,
We paid, well, I know that it was approved. I'm not sure if he invoiced us for everything. It was, his firm was working on it.
And I can double check, but he was one of the consultants, and he did give us a quote, so I will confirm with him.
he's
But
sent
when
the
we spoke to
invoices.
him, that was not communicated to us.
That's
but I
very, no,
will-
no, the thing is, if you're gonna look, you talk about this, make sure you have all the information, because I knew real quick that we had paid him, we approved it. So let's make sure if he's charging us money, we need to see something.
I will definitely do that. When we spoke to him, he did not mention that, so.
He might think we want more updates to the updates that he did a year ago, because that was about, when we hired the last HR director, they were working in conjunction with it, so.
Yeah,
He might be thinking you're asking for more updates, I don't know, so.
Oh,
that
yeah.
right.
because we have not seen those updates.
And and you may be correct, so I will definitely confirm that and provide that information to you.
Okay, we shouldn't be paying extra, or if we already paid for it.
I definitely agree, Mayor.
So let's look into that and then bring this item back, and we make sure, because I do agree, policy procedures do have to be revised, and, but I just don't want to be double paying or paying extra for something that should have been done.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you. Buenas noches.